I'm Oral Hershiser, and I am on the Blue Review. Hey, this is Sean Green. You're watching the Blue Review.
Bum, bum, ba-da-dum, bum, bum. Sad Bindi on a what day it is? Tuesday. On a Tuesday morning. Welcome to the Blue Review presented by LAX. I'm Marcus Grant. That is Greg Bergman. We'll be joined shortly by Katie Wu of The Athletic. Big sigh, Greg. Big sigh.
These are the days you just have to do that big sigh and just let it all out and say, okay, let's start over tomorrow. Yoshinobu Yamamoto's on the mound. We'll see how that goes.
Every day is a new day. Every day is a new day. Yesterday was not a good day for LA sports. The Lakers, despite a valiant effort at the end, lose and are swept by the Thunder. And then the Dodgers, at the same time, getting thumped, giving up 9 runs to the worst offensive team in baseball, the San Francisco Giants. But we'll talk about that and more in just a bit. But first, I want to let you know the Blue Review is powered by LAX. From practice to prime time, the all-electric LAX Skylink is being put through its paces and testing, getting ready to deliver reliable and traffic-free airport experience. For more information, visit lawa.org/ESPN. All right, let's bring in our friend, Katie Wu from The Athletic, who was kind enough to wake up and hang out with us early after a late night out at Dodger Stadium. Katie, good to see you again. How are things?
Gentlemen, good morning. Things are fine here, but maybe in Dodgerland, not so hot. Their worst loss of the season in terms of score and deficit yesterday. And like you said, Marcus, it is very difficult to make the San Francisco Giants look like a high-scoring baseball club because they aren't, but they were yesterday.
Yeah, team that's averaging just slightly more than 3 runs per game, tripled that output last night. So let's start, Katie, at the thing that I think is the most head-scratching for all of us, and that is Shohei Ohtani, which I guess lately we've been putting the O in Ohtani as an Ofer because the struggles have been real. Obviously, I know everybody's frustrated, but what is I'm not going to say panic level, but the concern level in the clubhouse with the offense and with Shohei in particular?
I think long-term, there's virtually zero concern about Shohei Ohtani. Like, I know we're all sitting here like he's going to figure it out, right? It just doesn't make it easy for what the Dodgers are going through right now. We asked manager Dave Roberts after the loss yesterday if this was as out of whack as we've seen Shohei Ohtani. And this is what Dave Roberts said. He said, quote, "Yes, it is." And he actually he responded before the question was even finished being asked. So it was a quick yes. Dave said, I think even early on when he wasn't right, he was still taking walks and getting on base. But right now, tonight was a classic example. He's just trying to swing out of it. And that's apparent when you're watching it. You're seeing a lot of soft contact, pull side. You're seeing a lot of expanding the zone, especially lower. And it's a great point about the walks. Early on in the season, when the offense wasn't really going from a production standpoint, he was still getting on base. He was still working counts. Now we're just seeing kind of an antsy kind of Shohei. And when that's the guy at the top of the order trying to set the lineup for the production that just really hasn't been there 1 through 9, it creates that trickle effect. And we're certainly seeing it with the offense right now.
So one of the things that Shohei does that he doesn't typically do is he's been out on the field pregame, hitting in the pen, hitting out on the field, actually, when he normally doesn't do that. He did that in the World Series, and then he had a monster game and it kind of set him right. Joe Davis was saying on the broadcast that he did not look good in the cage before the game even. So and you mentioned that the pull side, that everything's either on the ground or a strikeout. It's like, what else could he possibly do? Is it just struggling?
Yeah, no, he didn't look good during BP, and we did some math. I think we all know Shohei Ohtani does not take batting practice on the field in case of emergencies. That's really the only time, and he's done it 3 times already this season. So not where you want to be for Ohtani, and the BP didn't look good. He had 1 ball that left the stadium, and everything else was a lot of soft contact or popping the ball up. It just didn't look like Shohei. So this is a guy that I think is still adjusting to the full season of 2-way obligations. He's looked phenomenal on the mound, an early pick for the NL Cy Young. And we know how much that award means to him and how much he covets it. What him and the Dodgers must figure out is what's most valuable going forward, keeping him as a regular in the starting rotation. Now, to be very clear, they're not going to take him out. It's figuring out the workload, figuring out, they build him more rest days? Right now he's pretty much pitching on a 6-day schedule. Can they work in some rest days to make it 7 or 8? That's tricky, but it is doable. And then it's how does Shohei balance the offensive production while taking on the full two-way duties again? It's been multiple seasons since he's been able to do that. This is his first time in a Dodgers uniform where he's been asked to do that. And I think the adjustment is real. When he started the season and he was slumping and things weren't clicking at the plate, it's compounded into a full-on slump where, I think this is the worst we've seen Shohei Ohtani at the plate in the last couple of years. He has an OPS under 800. He's not hitting the ball or spraying the ball to the big part of the field. It's, again, a lot of weak contact to the pull side. I think in the grand scheme of things, we're going to be talking about Shohei Ohtani in much more favorable sense at the end of the year. But right now, when you look at everybody else, Kyle Tucker, Teoscar Hernandez had a nice night yesterday, but it hasn't been great all season. Freddie Freeman starting to get going. Really, if you're not named Max Muncy or Andy Pages, you haven't hit the ball as expected this year. It starts at the top with Shohei, and we're starting to see it kind of magnify throughout the lineup.
Yeah, I did see the reports that Dave Roberts saying Shohei he's going to get a day off at the plate either on Wednesday when he starts on the mound or on Thursday and just give him a full day off. I know they're still sort of working through that. The other part of this, Mookie Betts came back last night, 1 for 5. I know he's still, Katie, working through some things with his swing. But for me, I think the bigger question with Mookie coming back is they make the decision to send down Alex Freeland. How much of a surprise was that? I know it was a battle between Freeland and Kim. Was it eye-opening to see that it was Freeland that ends up going to OKC?
I don't think it was necessarily surprising. I think if there was one surprising thing, it was that Espinal stayed on the roster. So let's start with him first. When you're looking at the 26-man roster, the Dodgers have always coveted that true 26-man spot. And what I mean by that is a player where you're not worried about getting him playing time or consistent reps or getting him in the lineup. He's just there for depth and to spell a guy when needed. And with all due respect to Santiago Espinal, they don't care about his long-term development. They care about signing him as someone who can serve off the bench. That's why they came in and signed him during spring training when they knew that they would start the season without Tommy Edman and Kike Hernandez. So that's why Espinal was really never in the consideration to go to AAA or to be DFA'd, when Mookie comes back. It was between Hae-seong Kim and Alex Freeland. That goes back to playing time. When you're looking at the long-term picture for Alex Freeland, the Dodgers think it's best practice for him to get consistent at-bats, whether that's in the major leagues or minor leagues. With Mookie Betts coming back, there just wasn't going to be consistent playing time for everyone. And Hae-seong Kim earned the right to stay. The Dodgers asked him to fix his swing decisions, be more conscious about the pitch selection as he's going through the majors. And we've seen him really almost have the strikeout rate from last year and almost double the walk rate. So he's doing those things they've asked him to do. All in all, it just makes sense for Freeland to go down to continue getting reps. The Dodgers think they can still see enough playing time for Kim for at least the next 2 weeks, with Mookie Betts going to get more off days than maybe usual, and they can platoon second base with Miggy Rowe as well.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was figuring as well, because Hae-seong Kim plays shortstop. If they're going to give Mookie a day off, Hae-seong Kim can still go over there. Rojas can go back and forth as well, second and short. So that kind of all worked out. So when you talk about Mookie and you're saying that he's not going to play tomorrow, Wednesday. So what is the plan for Mookie going forward? Is how often do you think he'll be playing? It's obviously not going to be every day, but kind of what's his workload going to look like?
Sure. Yeah, it won't be every day, at least for the first week. That's just natural with the ramp up. And you guys both know how finicky the obliques can be. It's just a weird injury and it's hard to predict, though he said he's felt great. Obviously, he wouldn't be here if he didn't. So no Mookie Betts in the lineup on Wednesday. He'll be there Thursday. And then I think Dave Roberts is planning for Mookie to miss one of the 3 in Anaheim over the weekend. This whole Mookie Betts won't be in the lineup every single day is not going to last, and we both know this. The Dodgers will have another difficult decision to make about their middle infield in about 2 weeks when Kike Hernandez is scheduled to come off the 60-day IL. He is midway through a rehab assignment with AAA OKC. So right now it's just about making sure they have enough depth in the middle infield. They can still platoon second base like we talked about, Greg. And then, of course, either Miggy Rowe or Hae-seong Kim can back up Mookie Betts at shortstop a little more regularly than Dodgers fans are used to seeing, but that is, of course, temporary. Dave Roberts let us know it will be Miggy Rowe at shortstop on Wednesday. Yeah, he's essentially done exactly what they've asked him to do. And we talked about this briefly, but let's expand a little bit with the numbers. The big thing for the Dodgers when they were looking at their opening day roster and looking at that last spot for Freelander Kim was that Kim hadn't really done enough in spring training. And granted, he did go the WBC for a little bit to warrant the Dodgers' confidence that he'd made the right changes in his swing approach. That was, as we guys remember from last year, a huge part in Hae-seong Kim's game. He just had way too much swing and miss. He had a 30% strikeout rate. He wasn't walking. He was missing on pitches in the zone. So the Dodgers challenged him to make those adjustments. And right now, if looking at the numbers coming into Monday's game, the chase rate is down nearly 10%. So it's 35.3 in 2025. That's down to 26.3 this season, again, going into Monday. He's halved the K rate. It was 18% now compared to that 30 we talked about. He's walking up to almost 10% of the time. These are all trends that are suggesting that what Hae-seong Kim is doing is sustainable in the change in his approach. He's gone over and slotted into shortstop, even though that was where he's had the least amount of major league experience. He's done a nice job filling in for Betts there. He just has come into, I think, a solid depth piece for the Dodgers, and he won't be in the lineup every day when Hernandez comes back. We know this. But for right now, he's earned the right to stay, and the Dodgers are confident that with this platoon they have at second base, he'll continue to see enough reps, at least for the foreseeable future. But he's earned the right to stay based on making the changes that they've asked him to, and then being able to translate it into in-game results that we can see clearly on the page right now.
So the offense is obviously a massive problem right now. They're basically a 500 baseball team over the last month. But I do want to move over to the pitching and talk about Roki Sasaki, because last night looked like one of his better outings and a really encouraging outing to me. I mean, there was he left a couple splitters right into the middle of the plate that ended up giving up some runs. But for the most part, he was getting swing and miss. He was getting strikeouts. Were you encouraged by what you saw from Roki yesterday?
I'm definitely seeing incremental improvement with Roki, and the Dodgers are too, and that's really all they can ask for Sasaki right now. It's going to be, I think, coming into the season, no player for the Dodgers is going to be under more scrutiny than Roki. It didn't help when his spring training started in the disastrous way that it did, but
in and out.
it was rough, you guys. I'm going to use a word that most fans hate, so sorry in advance. We just have to be patient with Roki Sasaki, and that was the whole reason. It's by design. The Dodgers knew this coming into the season, that they believe the long-term outlook for Roki is much more positive than what they currently saw in April, and it is getting better. I wouldn't say Roki is anywhere near to where the expectations are for him. He said the same yesterday after the game, but when you're looking at the way he has to adjust to the major leagues, he just simply can't get by at MLB in the way that he was in Japan with just the fastball forkball combo, because those pitches don't play the same. Now, maybe a little bit of that has to do with the ball. Obviously, in Japan, the ball is a little smaller. It's a different kind of ball in the major leagues. Roki has said that's not part of the problem. The Dodgers think that there's a little bit more there in terms of adjustment. But overall, it's figuring out how to make that arsenal play, because the velo has not sat 99-100 like it has in Japan. And the forkball has looked remarkably different, and that was before he used that new variation of the split. That's why there was so much made of expanding Roki Sasaki's arsenal. He's worked in the slider. He now has two different variations of that forkball, the newer one being, I think, much more effective and easier to command in the zone, though it profiles more as a traditional splitter. And I think the reason that the Dodgers are looking to expand that arsenal is, again, to look at results, because if Roki doesn't have that triple-digit velo on the fastball, the arsenal simply just doesn't play as much. So if you expand it and you can kind of throw the kitchen sink at hitters, maybe you'll find better success. Now, that is also going to be work in progress, because as we've seen, the ability to command those pitches hasn't always been there. Over the last three starts, the command has been much better. He's been in the zone much more, and I think has a better general sense of where the ball is going, but he is getting a little predictable as he works in that pitch mix. That makes sense, given the fact that he hasn't really had a pitch mix in his career. He's been a two-pitch pitcher. So it's a lot of baby steps, and for fans, it's aggravating, because Dodger fans are conditioned to best 26 players on the roster. You can make the argument that Roki Sasaki, especially when Tyler Glasnow comes back, is not one of the best six starters that they have in the rotation. But in a conversation I had with Andrew Friedman over the weekend, he explained his job is also to, yes, win now, but make sure that he's setting up this dynasty run to last multiple seasons, not just for what this current core is looking at. And it's all about, for Roki, making sure that they are giving him the best possible chance to develop into a long-term starter. I know it is rare for the Dodgers to prioritize development over winning on a certain day. It's not rare in baseball, but it is rare here. And Dodgers fans, I get the exasperation, but the club really believes that the baby steps that we're seeing for Sasaki right now is going to be worth dividends more later. You're thinking 3-4 years down the road.
You talk about the velocity. I mean, that was kind of the big selling point when Roki Sasaki came over. It has not been the same. Are they convinced that he can sort of win without being a triple-digit guy? Is he going to learn to kind of work around that?
That's the big question. And I think that's what the organization is looking at internally. If they are not sure that Roki Sasaki can sit 100, and he's not touched 100 with his fastball all season. I think he's done it in the regular season less than 5 times last year. So he has yet to show that he can sustain those numbers. And again, they're going back and looking at the metrics, they're looking at the ball, they're looking at everything that could possibly going on with Sasaki to see why that number hasn't been able to be hit so frequently. But if he can't sit 100, he has to have more weapons to throw. Timing is everything. He was one of the reasons he was so successful in Japan was because he could vary the speeds with the fastball and the forkball, and there was just no answer for opposing hitters. Also, hitters in MLB are usually much more developed than hitters in Japan. It's part of the reason why the Dodgers don't want to send him to AAA, and they weren't even really contemplating that when it looked like they might have had a roster decision to make with Glass now, one on the IL. But before that, Blake Snell coming back seemed to give the rotation a bit of a crunch. Sasaki was never in danger of losing his job because the Dodgers need to know what he can do against major league hitters. And you can't find that out in AAA. The talent is it's more wide than it's ever been. Talking to Andrew Friedman, I'll paraphrase here. He said, we learn a lot from Roki reading the swings of major league hitters. That tells us everything we need to know about what his stuff is playing and where his stuff is playing. They're not going to get nearly the same evaluations in AAA. So it just goes back to prioritizing development long-term over maybe winning the game right now. That was really hard to stomach in April, especially for fans. I get it. It's looked better, though, the last 3 starts. He has given them a chance to win the game. And I thought yesterday the outing was the best we've seen all season.
Yeah, so now there's a lot. You mentioned it, but when Glasnow comes back, which we're hoping it's going to be pretty soon, because he didn't seem like it was a typical injury that he has every year. So he's had it for a long time, but velocity changes. Emmett Sheehan is dealing with velocity issues, and then also Justin Robleski's been fantastic, but as it was bound to happen eventually, he gave up runs on Sunday. So when Glasnow does come back, what does that look like? Does Robleski go to the bullpen? Does Sheehan go down to work on his velocity? Hae-seong Kim, not Hae-seong Kim, but Roki Sasaki, like you've been saying, stays up here. So what does that kind of look like?
Yeah, this was the big decision that we thought the Dodgers were going to have to make a couple of days ago. The good news, of course, Tyler Glasnow, fantastic April. Doesn't sound like he's going to miss more than the minimum amount of time. I believe he started throwing again. I will double check that today. But Andrew Friedman has this phrase that he likes to use called kicking the can down the road, and that's exactly what they're doing with this decision. But it does up the ante on Emmett Sheehan, who we've had this story about him all season long, has not been able to sustain the velo. It comes out sitting 95 in the first inning, and then it trickles down. And obviously, there's a huge difference in stuff when you're sitting 93 instead of sitting 95. So for Emmett to be able to sustain the velo going forward, that's going to be pivotal to watch over his next couple of starts. Justin Robleski was phenomenal in April. You knew some regression was bound to happen because he can't go the entire season without a run scoring. Atlanta, I thought, was a much cleaner game. What really kind of blew it out of proportion was the unfortunate throwing error not even a throwing error, but misplay by him on what would have been a game-ending double play ball. So I would say it's between Sheehan and Robleski, and the argument the Dodgers can make, it won't be popular with the fan base, but with Robleski is that it's the path of least resistance for him to go back to the bullpen. He's done it before. He's really thrived in that setting. However, he's also proved he's a major league starter. If the Dodgers think that Sheehan and his velo is going to continue to be a problem, maybe you send him to AAA as a get-right stint. But either way, it's kind of hard to justify either one, especially if you're a fan. It's really hard to justify moving Robleski. So the Dodgers will evaluate going forward and make that decision when Glasnow comes back, which should be in a couple weeks.
Speaking of the bullpen has been very good so far this season, especially after last year. Everybody watched Blake Trinan struggle, Tanner Scott struggle. Knowing that this team is without Edwin Diaz for a little while still, can we expect, to continue to be kind of closer by committee of it? Kate, is it they have to have leads in the 9th inning, which hasn't seemed very consistent lately, but is it a closer by committee situation until further notice?
Yeah, Marcus, you took the words right out of my mouth as we're talking about closing down the late innings. I was like, well, the Dodgers really haven't had a lot of close as of late. I was skeptical of the bullpen, especially when Diaz went down, because part of the reason I thought that guys like Alex Vesia, Blake Trinan, Tanner Scott found so much success early in the season was because knowing that Diaz had the ninth no matter what, Dave Roberts was able to match up with Lane. And you lose that luxury when you don't have a certified ninth inning closer. But those guys have really stepped it up. I know it was a rough one for Vesia yesterday. He gets a pass for me when the body of work overall has been as consistent as it has been. But we are going to see a closer by committee. And Tanner Scott will get the bulk of that share. I don't think we're giving Tanner Scott maybe as much appreciation and love as he deserves because he's really turned it around outside of maybe one bad outing. He has been nails. And the Dodgers really needed that, especially with wins in the ninth being a little hard to come by, certainly more hard to come by than we all would have thought. So Diaz, haven't really heard much from him. He's been with the team. He was there yesterday, I believe. I don't know what day it is, but he was around sometime during the Braves series. And they'll continue to go with closer by committee, but really impressive work from Tanner Scott right now, who has worked, as he said, to just stop throwing the ball down the middle.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job with that, which is nice. You're validating Marcus and I very much how we talk on the show. We talked a lot about Justin Robleski going back to the bullpen, even though that wouldn't be popular. We were very high on Tanner Scott having a comeback year this year. So thank you very much for that. The question that I really have right now is, who the hell is Wyatt Mills?
Yes. That, when Dave Roberts was saying, we kind of knew there was going to be a bullpen shuffle after what Paul Gervais did. A nice job by him. I was looking at the 40 man and I was like, none of these guys are going to be up here. Like, it just doesn't make sense based on usage in AAA. And I was like, he's going to say a name that I'm, trying to figure out. And he goes, Mills. And I'm like, Wyatt Mills. All right, let's figure this out. But yeah, that was a tough spot to put him in yesterday because the game was out of hand. You're down 3. You're just hoping you can preserve the lead. And when you're down 3 and the offense is what it is, it actually feels like down 30. So he had to go out there, wear it. The Dodgers weren't going to burn another arm. Everyone has a role in that bullpen. So it was a tough night for him. But, I would probably expect maybe some reshuffling just to rest the pen. But, big day for Yamamoto, if I could say. I think if Dave Roberts is sitting at his desk this morning, he's going to be like, let's go Yama, because they really need a good outing. And some offense would be nice. We say it every day, but maybe today's the day, guys.
Speaking of which, a question for you that you can ask to either Dave Roberts, Robert Van Scoyoc, something. A thing that I have noticed about this team, not just this year, but for the last several years, when they are facing a pitcher whose ERA is 6 or above, it seems as though the offense goes into an even deeper funk. Adrian Hauser is the probable for the Giants tonight. He's got an ERA of 6.19. No. Is there any rhyme or reason to why it just seems like these guys with these balloon ERAs look like Cy Young candidates against the Dodgers?
It's funny because I would see Adrian Hauser pitch for the Brewers a lot back when I was covering the NL Central, and he would always shove. And then I'd see him outside, and I'd be like, that's not the same Adrian Hauser that I've seen in person. But no, it's just hitting in general. And Max Muncy has been very gracious with his time the last couple of days, kind of taking the response for the team, talking to the media about the offense. And he's, said it. They're back-to-back world champions for a reason. They're going to figure it out. But right now, no one's really feeling good with the exception of him. And it can create a trickle effect where if the entire lineup knows that no guy is feeling good, one guy can be like, okay, I need to fix it for the whole team. And when you have 9 guys with that kind of mentality, it leads to this kind of offense. I saw better situational hitting yesterday. Bases loaded there. Obviously, you're going to want more than 2 runs, but 2 runs is better than 0. And I think the process is getting better. I think if you're looking at baby steps, signs of life, silver linings, it's that the quality of at-bats and situational hitting did look better yesterday. Maybe not reflected in the box score, but Teoscar Hernandez had a really rough start to the year. He's looked much better, hitting 8th. Max Muncy finally getting rewarded for some hard contact. We're seeing Andy Pages start to come out of it. That's why I think, obviously, Mookie Betts coming back is a big deal and a positive. That's groundbreaking analysis. I know. Thank you. But when you look at what he can bring to that lineup, slotting him back in the 2-hole there kind of elongates everything and allows guys to get back to roles where they feel comfortable. Freddie Freeman hitting second when Kyle Tucker was really slumping wasn't the best place for Freddie Freeman. It was just what made sense for the betterment of the lineup. But even Freddie wasn't feeling super comfortable in that spot. So you're able to slot guys back down. Max Muncy, middle of the order. Andy Pages back hitting 7, where we really saw him thrive at the beginning of the year, and moving Teo down to a place with a little less leverage and a spot where he could be a little bit more successful. We saw him have some results there yesterday. So hopefully they can keep it going against the mighty Adrian Hauser and his 619.
We will see. Katie, as always, we appreciate you hanging out with us in the morning. Great work in The Athletic. Didn't get time yet. You and Fabian put together a piece about Dalton Rushing and the fact that he seems to be Major League Baseball's new wrestling heel. That was good stuff, too. But always appreciate you hanging out with us, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again sometime soon.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. And maybe some runs today. Let's manifest that.
Let's manifest some runs. That would be great. We will find out tonight when the Dodgers and Giants get together for game 2 of that series, 7:10 first pitch time from Dodger Stadium. In the meantime, that'll do it for this edition of the Blue Review presented by LAX. Stick around. The Sedano and Cap Morning Extravaganza coming up next here on the ESPN LA YouTube channel. Sure, there'll be a lot of Lakers postmortem after last night, maybe some Dodger talk as well. Thanks to Tim for production assistance. Thanks to everybody in the chat for hanging out with us as well. So for Katie Wu, for Greg Bergman, I am Marcus Grant. We'll be back with you tomorrow, 6:30 to 6:55 for the Blue Review here on the ESPN LA YouTube channel. See ya.
See ya.